Have you ever been like standing on a train platform just waiting, and then wham, this really weird thought just flashes into your head?
Yeah, like maybe I could jump, or even, what if I push that guy?
Exactly. And you immediately think, whoa, where did that come from? And just, brush it off.
Right. But here's the really important question, what we're digging into today. What if that thought didn't just go away?
What if it stuck around?
What if it haunted you, made you seriousseriously question yourself, maybe even your sanity, and you felt like you couldn't possibly tell anyone about it?
Am I losing my mind? Is this real?
That's a really isolating feeling, and I bet a lot of our listeners know exactly what you mean.
It is, and that's why today we're doing a deep dive into these things called unwanted intrusive thoughts.
Those really disturbing, uninvited thoughts or images or even memories that pop up and feel so, frightening or obsessive or sometimes just plain bizarre.
Yeah. And for this, we're leaning heavily on some top experts, Sally M. Winston, Martin, and Seif. They wrote this fantastic CBT-based guide, Overcoming Unwanted Intrusive Thoughts.
CBT, so cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right. And this isn't just theory, It's really grounded in years and years of clinical work, actual research.
So our mission here is basically to take all their great insights and give you a shortcut. We want you to understand why these thoughts happen.
Why the usual ways of trying to get rid of them often, make things worse.
No, get out of my head. I have to focus.
And, crucially, how you can actually change your relationship with them for good.
Yeah. The big takeaway up front is you are definitely not alone in this, and there really is a solid, proven path to getting relief.
Okay, so let's start with just how common this stuff is. Are we talking about a rare issue or?
Ooh, it's way more common than people think. It's actually quite fascinating. The numbers suggest upwards of 6 million people in the U.S. alone deal with this at some point.
6 million, wow.
Yeah, and get this, if you ask a room full of just regular people, hey, ever had a fleeting, weird, unsettling thought? It's almost like 90% will say yes.
90%.
It shows that good people, perfectly sane people, have thoughts that seem awful or violent or just completely crazy. It's just part of the human mind's chatter.
So it's almost like everyone gets these weird mental pop-ups now and then. But you mentioned a sticker shock earlier. It's not just having the thought, is it?
No, that's the absolute key distinction. It's not the thought itself. It's what happens next.
Meaning how you react to it.
Exactly. If you get really upset by it or start worrying intensely about what it means or actively try to fight it, push it down, that's when it gets sticky.
Okay, so the fight makes it stick.
Right. It transforms from just a random blip into this unwanted intrusive thought that starts consuming your mental energy.
What am I gonna do? I can't keep doing this. This is driving me mad.
Keeps coming back, maybe even gets stronger, more intense.
And that leads to fear, right? Fear about yourself.
Huge fears about your safety, your real intentions, your morality, your self-control, even questioning if you're losing your mind. It becomes this drain.
Right. Now here's the part that's the real game changer. It kind of flips everything on its head.
The big paradox.
Yeah. You'd think these thoughts stick around despite you trying your hardest to get rid of them.
It feels that way, absolutely.
But the reality, which is kind of mind-blowing, is that they often persist because of those very efforts. Trying to push them away, argue them down, seek constant reassurance.
I can't let it consume me. I must push it away, no matter how strong it gets.
That's the fuel. That's what keeps them alive. It's such a fundamental point the authors make. If you want a different result, you absolutely need a different method.
So it's not like there's something inherently wrong with you.
Not at all. It's just that the method you're using to cope is, counterproductive. It's accidentally feeding the very thing you want to starve.
I can't keep doing this. It's too much.
Okay. To really get a handle on this, talk about these three natural voices in our minds, like different characters in your head influencing how you experience these thoughts. Who's the first one?
The first one is the worried voice. Think of this as your inner
What if?
what if generator.
Always asking what if.
Constantly. It voices the fears, the doubts, predicts terrible outcomes. Sometimes it sounds totally irrational, even perverse. It's the first responder, basically, ramping up the anxiety.
No, I can't.
the moment an intrusive thought hits.
Okay, so worried voice sounds the alarm. Then what happens?
Well, right on its heels comes the false comfort voice.
You'd never do that.
Its job, or what it thinks its job is to get rid of the discomfort the worried voice just created.
How does it try to do that?
It argues back. It tries to reassure you, maybe tells you to avoid certain things, tries to control the thoughts. You'd never do that. To stop thinking about it, that kind of thing.
But it doesn't really work, does it?
That's the problem. It might give you like a second of relief, but it almost always just triggers another what if.
What if they find out?
It's fine. No one suspects a thing.
From the worried voice.
Ah, so it's a cycle.
Exactly. It's this endless back and forth commentary, this internal argument that often becomes the most distressing part of the whole experience. It's exhausting.
But the evidence.
It's all circumstantial. You'll be okay.
So these two are just slugging it out in your head. But there's a third voice, right? A calmer one.
Yes, thankfully. That's the wise mind. It's like the calm, insightful observer standing off to the side.
Watching the argument.
Exactly. Wise mind sees the worried voice and false comfort going at it, and understands that false comfort, even with good intentions, is actually just fueling the fire.
So wise mind is detached.
Yeah, it's disentangled. It accepts that uncertainty is part of life. It encourages more of a mindful, non-judgmental approach, just watching the thoughts and feelings without getting sucked in.
Let's make this concrete. The authors use an example, right? About a kitten.
Yeah, imagine the thought pops up. That kitten's cute. What if I strangled it? Horrible thought, right?
Definitely. So how would the voices react?
Okay, worried voice jumps in. What if I did strangle it? My hands would fit.
Then false comfort rushes in. No, you'd never. You love animals. Stop thinking that.
The worried voice isn't convinced. How do you know? Remember how angry you got driving yesterday? What if I lose control?
So false comfort tries again. That was just anger. You didn't hurt anyone. Just stop thinking it. It won't happen.
And now, imagine wise mind calmly intervening. Okay, let me step in here. These are just thoughts. I see you two arguing. I notice the more you fight, the more upset you both get. And the more it seems like this is a real problem needing a solution. But really, it's just a wild, intrusive thought. They happen. They don't mean anything fundamentally. What if you just let them be? Just thoughts passing through.
That example really shows what psychologists call the ironic process, right? Or the imp of the mind.
Exactly. The idea is when you try really hard not to think about something,
You think about it more.
you got it. Even something totally neutral, like try not to think of a pink elephant. What happens?
Pink elephant pops right in.
Right? Your attempt to control your mind totally backfires. What you resist persists. And that energy, that fighting energy, is precisely why these unwanted intrusive thoughts get so sticky. It's a fundamental paradox.
So let's connect this to the brain. How does this internal wrestling match actually keep these thoughts feeling so alarming, so sticky neurologically?
Well, our brains are wired for safety, right? It's a brilliant system, usually. But sometimes it gets its wires crossed.
It misidentifies threats.
Yeah, it can misidentify something perfectly safe, like a random thought, as dangerous. And if a thought happens, and then you have a big anxious reaction.
It creates a link.
Precisely. A pathway gets established between that thought and the feeling of fear. And the more that happens, the stronger that connection gets. Your brain gets conditioned to react anxiously, automatically, to that specific thought, like a learned reflex.
That sounds exhausting. That immediate alarm bell you mentioned, the fight or flight thing, where does that come from?
That's mainly the amygdala. Two tiny little almond-shaped bits deep in your brain. Think of it like an alarm switch. It's either on or off. And it is incredibly fast.
How fast?
Like 1/5 of a second fast. It triggers before you even consciously process the thought. That's what we call first fear. It's automatic. You can't really stop it in the moment.
That initial whoosh of panic before you even know why. So why does it happen so fast, almost bypassing conscious thought?
Because we have two routes to the amygdala. There's a quick and dirty, kind of fuzzy path that skips the thinking part of your brain, the cortex.
The shortcut.
The shortcut, exactly. And then there's a slower, more detailed path that does go through the cortex for analysis. So you literally get that jolt of fear before your thinking brain has even had a chance to say, wait, is this actually dangerous?
And with unwanted intrusive thoughts, the thinking brain then jumps in.
Yeah, that's where worried voice and false comfort come back in. They start their commentary, telling the amygdala, yep, still danger here, keep the alarm ringing.
So they keep the fear going.
They fuel what the authors call second fear. That's the ongoing fright that comes from your own internal commentary about the thought.
And living in that constant state of alarm that leads to what's called anxious thinking, a different state of mind.
It really is an altered state. When you're in it, things feel different. For example, you might experience thought-action fusion, meaning scary thoughts feel as real and dangerous as actually doing the scary thing. Like, thinking about harming someone feels almost the same as harming them, or means you secretly want to.
Wow, that sounds incredibly confusing.
It is. And in that state, all risks feel huge, demanding absolute 100% certainty, which is just impossible in life. Thoughts feel super sticky, hard to shake off. That's the ironic process playing out neurologically.
And uncertainty feels unbearable.
Yeah, real intolerance of uncertainty. Any situation that isn't crystal clear feels deeply threatening.
That is a lot to navigate, but it brings us back to that really crucial, simple point you made.
Say it again, it's worth repeating.
Neither thoughts nor feelings are facts.
Exactly. Hold on to that one.
That distinction, thoughts and feelings aren't facts, feels like such a vital lifeline. Because as we're learning, so many common beliefs about thoughts are actually myths that keep people stuck. What's a really big one?
Probably the biggest is myth number 1. Our thoughts are under our control. So many people believe they should be able to just stop thinking certain things.
But the reality is,
most thoughts just happen. They pop up, drift away, jump around. You can't just command them to stop. Like Wise Mind says, everyone's mind goes everywhere. Thoughts are just thoughts.
okay. Another one that causes immense guilt. Our thoughts indicate our character.
Oh, huge myth. And completely untrue. Your chosen actions are what reflect your character, not random mental noise.
So having a violent thought doesn't make you a violent person.
Not at all. Gentle people have violent thoughts. Devoutly religious people have blasphemous ones. What's really interesting is the content is often the exact opposite of your deeply held values.
Then there's the idea that our thoughts reveal our true inner self, like some hidden unconscious desire.
Nope. Another myth. Fleeting thoughts don't uncover secret wishes. That old Freudian idea that the wish is father to the fear. No evidence for it. It just makes people more scared.
And what about that almost magical thinking? Thinking something makes it likely to happen.
False. Totally false.
No.
A thought is not a prediction. It's not a warning signal from the universe. Thinking about your house burning down doesn't make it more likely to burn down. It's just a thought.
Okay, this one feels really important for reducing shame. Only sick people have intrusive thoughts.
This might be the most damaging myth of all. It fuels so much isolation. The truth is, everyone gets them. Seriously.
Everyone.
Everyone. The difference isn't having the thought, it's the stickiness.
Yeah.
And that stickiness comes from your reaction to the thought, not from some flaw in your character or sanity.
Even mentioned Mother Teresa had them.
Right. If Mother Teresa had unwanted intrusive thoughts, it kind of puts it in perspective, doesn't it? It really normalizes it.
Definitely. And one last myth. Every thought is worth thinking about.
Absolutely not. Your mind is like, I don't know, a busy radio station with static and multiple channels playing at once. Loads of it is just junk. Mental noise, not worth analyzing or taking seriously. Most intrusions, if you don't grab onto them, just float on by.
It's probably comforting for people to know they aren't alone in the types of thoughts they have either, even though they feel so personal and shocking.
I thought I was the only one who felt this way, but now I see I'm not alone.
Oh, absolutely. The sources list common categories, and they're distressing precisely because they clash so strongly with who the person actually is.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, so there are morally repugnant thoughts. This is the big category. Things like thoughts of harming someone you love or yourself, maybe forbidden sexual thoughts involving relatives, or blasphemous thoughts during prayer.
Things that feel deeply wrong to the person having them.
Exactly. The distress comes from how alien they feel to your actual values. Then there's stuff like toxic worry, not useful problem solving, but that endless what-if loop about, say, your kid's safety or your health, where no answer ever feels certain enough.
And sometimes thoughts can get tangled up with just normal feelings.
Yeah, the not entirely unwanted intrusions, like maybe dwelling on resentment after an argument, or obsessing during early romance. These only become a problem if you start fighting them, judging yourself for having them, worrying excessively about what they mean.
Seeing these categories really drives home the point. You're not alone. The specific thought might feel unique, but the process of it getting stuck, that's universal.
That's the key takeaway. You're in very good company, whatever the content.
Okay, so we know what they are, why they stick. Let's pivot to the practical stuff. People try all sorts of things to cope. things that seem like common sense. Why do our sources say these often backfire?
Well, mainly because they encourage that entanglement, that struggle we talked about. They send the message that the thought is urgent, important, and dangerous.
And trying to reassure yourself, or asking others for reassurance.
That's usually the first go-to. I wouldn't really do that, right?
Yeah.
It might give you a brief moment of relief. But it reinforces the idea that the thought needs an answer, that it's significant, which just leads to more doubt down the line. You can become a reassurance junkie, beating more and more, and it never truly satisfies the underlying anxiety.
What about something like prayer? Faith is a huge source of strength for many.
And faith is incredibly important. But the authors point out, if prayer is used specifically as a ritual to banish the thought, it can be counterproductive.
So.
It treats the thought as if it has real power, maybe even comes from an evil source. That just increases the entanglement, makes the thought seem more significant. And if the thoughts don't stop, it can even lead to a crisis of faith, ironically.
So it sounds like any strategy aimed at controlling or stopping the thought is likely to backfire.
Pretty much. Things like thought-stopping techniques, trying to distract yourself constantly, using positive affirmations to argue against the thought, rational disputation, avoiding triggers.
They all send the wrong message to your brain.
Exactly. They all imply the thought is dangerous and needs to be controlled. The authors are really clear. Avoidance, whether it's avoiding situations or just mentally trying to block the thought, is the most effective fuel for keeping these thoughts active. It just teaches your brain, yep, this thought is a genuine threat.
Okay, so if fighting back makes it worse, what is the way out? How do you break the cycle?
The path forward involves a radical shift in attitude. It's about developing acceptance.
Acceptance. That sounds passive. Does it mean liking the thoughts?
Not at all. Acceptance here doesn't mean liking the thought or agreeing with its content. It means allowing it to be present without struggling against it, without judging it, without engaging it. It's about changing your fundamental relationship to the thought.
And the sources offer a practical framework for this, right? Those 6 steps, R.J.A.F.T.P.
Yes, it's a great acronym, but the first step is recognize.
Recognize.
Just pause and label it. Ah, that's an intrusive thought. Observe it without judgment. And crucially, allow for uncertainty. Remember that mantra. Certainty is a feeling, not a fact.
Okay, R is recognize, then J.
Just thoughts. Remind yourself, these are automatic blips. They're harmless noise. They're best left alone. It's like dropping your end of the rope in that mental tug of war.
Drop the rope. I like that. Next is A.
Accept and allow. This is key. Don't push it away. Don't distract yourself from it. Don't get into an argument with its content. This means silencing that false comfort voice inside, because all it does is fuel the worried voice. It's an active stance of willingness to let the thought just be there.
Willingness, not liking. Okay. Then F.
Float and feel. Try to float above the struggle. Allow whatever feelings come up, anxiety, disgust, fear, just let them be there without fighting them. Move your attention gently to your senses, to the present moment, instead of getting lost in scary imagined futures.
Float and feel. Next is T.
Let time pass. Observe the anxiety with curiosity, not urgency. That feeling of I have to fix this and no, Bubby, that urgency is a false message from your brain. Don't keep checking if the thought is gone yet. Just slow down your internal pace.
And finally, P.
Proceed. Just continue with whatever you were doing before the thought interrupted you. Go about your day. Don't let these terrorists of the mind, as they call them, hijack your life. Even if the fear is still there, acting anyway is your most powerful move. It shows the thought who's boss.
R.J.A.F.T.P. Recognize, just thoughts. Accept and allow. Float and feel. Let time pass. Proceed. That's a powerful sequence. But I imagine it's not always easy. What gets in the way? What are the enemies of acceptance?
Good question. Guilt is a big one. If you keep seeking reassurance about whether you're a good person because of the thought, you're just giving the thought more power.
Makes sense. What else?
Doubt. That constant craving for 100% certainty. It's pure fuel for intrusive thoughts. The authors suggest asking yourself the gun test question. If someone held a gun to my head and demanded to know, is this just an unwanted intrusive thought or a meaningful message I need to act on? Well, what would my gut say? Your wise mind usually knows, even if it's only 51% sure it's just a thought.
That's a stark way to put it. And the last enemy?
Urgency. That feeling that you need to do something about the thought right now. It's a false alarm, but it makes it incredibly difficult to do all those acceptance steps, to pause, float, allow, and let time pass. It fights against the whole R.J.A.F.T.P process.
So R.J.A.F.T.P is the strategy for managing thoughts when they happen. But how do you go beyond just managing them? How do you actually, rewire your brain so they bother you less overall. It sounds like it needs something more proactive.
It definitely does for lasting change. The most effective method, according to the research in clinical practice, is exposure work.
Exposure? That sounds intense. You mean deliberately bringing the thoughts on?
Yes, exactly. It sounds completely counterintuitive, maybe even frightening. But it's about deliberately triggering the thoughts that scare you and allowing yourself to get uncomfortable on purpose.
Why on earth would you do that?
Because it's not about making yourself suffer more. It's about ending the suffering permanently. You're intentionally activating those fear pathways in your brain.
To teach them they're not actually dangerous.
Precisely. To teach your amygdala, see, this thought happens, the anxiety comes, but nothing terrible actually follows. It's a false alarm. The experts explain this works in a couple of key ways. One idea is you're correcting false fear memories by repeatedly facing the thought without doing your usual escape or avoidance routines and staying with the feeling until it naturally subsides.
Okay, retraining the memory. What's the other idea?
The other, which is really fascinating, is called inhibitory learning. It suggests you don't actually erase the old fear pathway, but you build new, competing, non-fearful pathways alongside it.
Like building a new highway next to an old country road.
Exactly like that.
Okay.
The more you practice using the new highway, the non-fearful response, the stronger it gets, until it becomes your brain's default route. The old road is still there, but you just don't use it much anymore.
So regardless of the exact mechanism, both ideas point to the same core principle.
Which is the willingness and ability to tolerate the discomfort, the anxiety, without trying to eliminate it immediately. When you can do that consistently, the thoughts lose their power. They start to fade.
So applying R.J.A.F.T.P when thoughts pop up is good practice.
It's essential incidental practice, yes.
But deliberately inviting the thoughts speeds things up.
Significantly. You actually want to feel a manageable level of anxiety during planned practice sessions. That's the signal to your brain that learning is happening. You're showing it you can handle the feeling.
And for these practice sessions, the authors give us the 5 A's.
Right, to make sure the practice is effective. First, always approach it with an attitude of acceptance. Second, assign accurate assessment. Remember, just thoughts, not facts or impulses.
Okay. Third,
Active allowance of awareness and effect. Let all the thoughts and feelings come into your awareness. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back. Fourth, avoid avoidances. This is the always attempt approach. Actively challenge any urges to avoid situations or mental tricks you use.
and the 5th A?
Action. Advance activities. Anyway, keep living your life. Do the things that matter to you, even if the thoughts or anxiety are there. This really robs them of their power, shows them they can't stop you.
I love this next tip they give for practice. It brings some, defiant humor to it. Think the worst thought with a twist.
Isn't that great? It sounds absurd, but it's about changing your relationship to the thought, making it less terrifying. You could literally sing your worst intrusive thought to the tune of Happy Birthday.
Seriously?
Seriously. Or write it down over and over until it just becomes meaningless scribbles. Draw a picture of it. Record yourself saying it.
Yeah.
Carry it on sticky notes in your pocket. Make it mundane, even ridiculous. It diffuses the fear.
When you're doing this exposure work, though, how do you stop yourself from getting sucked back into arguing with the content of the thought?
Good point. You use those grounding phrases. Simple self-talk like, that's just a thought, or okay, uncertainty, or just noise. And crucially, keep shifting your attention gently away from the what-if story in your head back to what is, what you can see, hear, feel, smell right now. Focus on your senses. It anchors you in the present.
The book shares stories, right? People doing things like singing about their fears or carrying ropes if they feared harming someone, or deliberately thinking about checking the alarm clock over and over to break that compulsion.
Yeah, those real-life examples show it's about taking back control by refusing to control the thoughts themselves.
So the ultimate goal, the recovery point, is when it just doesn't matter anymore if the thoughts show up.
That's it, exactly.
Right.
Recovery isn't necessarily that the thoughts vanish forever, although they often fade dramatically. It's that they lose their power to derail you. You've taken back control by letting go of the need to control them. You've cut off their fuel supply, that paradoxical effort.
So recovery is more than just thoughts stopping. It's like getting an inoculation for the future. What does that mean practically?
It means you carry forward some really valuable things.
Right.
One, you have the knowledge, you understand how these thoughts can trigger your brain's alarm. Two, you have the skill, the ability to slow down, observe your thoughts without getting entangled.
And 3.
Three, you develop a fundamentally different relationship with your own mind, one that's gentler, more accepting, less judgmental.
And when you really, truly deep down believe these thoughts are just meaningless mental static, what happens then?
The whole dynamic changes. You stop dreading them popping up. That anticipatory anxiety starts to fade. Your mind feels less sticky. That initial whoosh of fear gets weaker or disappears. Thoughts might still come, but they float by much more easily. And then often they just naturally peter out because they're not getting any tension or energy. That's the natural course of recovery.
What about setbacks? Because life isn't smooth. Stress happens, bad days happen. Do the thoughts come roaring back sometimes?
Setbacks are totally normal, expected even. They can be triggered by stress, lack of sleep, sometimes even just feeling relaxed and letting your guard down. But they aren't failures.
They're opportunities.
Exactly. They're opportunities to dust off those acceptance skills, to practice R.J.A.F.T.P again, to remind your wise mind, yes, I know what this is. It's just a thought. I know how to handle this.
So the more you practice this acceptance, this allowing, this not caring so much about the content, the less power the thoughts have.
Absolutely. They lose their ability to frighten you or disgust you or upset you. And in that process, you gain this incredible sense of freedom and self-respect too.
Now, this is really crucial. We've been talking about unwanted, intrusive thoughts which feel alien, unwanted, and the struggle is often about over-control. But it's vital to distinguish these from other kinds of thoughts or experiences that do require different, often urgent professional help.
Yes, this distinction is incredibly important. We're not talking about what the authors call invited thoughts. These might be actual urges or plans to harm yourself, or others that feel less like a scary intrusion and more like a solution or something you're drawn to.
Or thoughts that feel soothing somehow, even if destructive.
Right. We're also not talking about real suicidal preoccupations. This isn't the intrusive fear of suicide. This is a genuine wish to die, often linked with deep hopelessness and clinical depression, where the thought of death might feel like a comfort or escape, not a terrifying intrusion.
And certainly not real pedophilia, which involves actual sexual interest or arousal related to children, completely distinct from a horrifying intrusive thought about harming a child that causes immense distress.
Absolutely distinct. Also different are conditions involving psychosis, delusions, or hallucinations, where someone loses touch with reality, can't distinguish what's real from what's not. That's a different category entirely.
And pervasive hopelessness.
Yeah, that deep-seated feeling that life has no options, nothing will ever get better, even when objective evidence might suggest otherwise. Often a sign of depression.
Agitation.
Right. That state of inner turmoil, racing thoughts, can't sit still, can't feel pleasure, waking up super early, intense irritability, can't concentrate. These can be symptoms of severe depression or bipolar disorder and need medical evaluation.
So the bottom line is, if your experiences lean more towards these latter categories, invited harmful thoughts, genuine suicidal wishes, psychosis, deep hopelessness, severe agitation, it is absolutely essential to reach out to a mental health professional or a doctor.
Without question, get professional help. What we've discussed today is specifically for unwanted intrusive thoughts as defined by Winston and Seif.
Okay, so let's wrap up. We've really taken a deep dive today into unwanted intrusive thoughts. We've learned they are incredibly common, definitely not a sign of bad character, and that fighting them usually just makes them stronger.
Yeah, and we've explored how the brain's alarm system gets involved, busted some common myths that keep people stuck, and really highlighted the transformative power of shifting your stance to one of acceptance, using tools like R.J.A.F.T.P, and even doing deliberate exposure work.
Hopefully, if you've been struggling with this, you now have a much clearer understanding of what's going on and, importantly, a concrete, evidence-based path forward. A way not just to cope, but to genuinely overcome these thoughts and reclaim your peace of mind.
You're equipped with the knowledge and the strategy now.
So as we finish up, here's a final thought to leave you with, something that maybe mull over. We've spent this whole time talking about how resisting unwanted thoughts makes them persist. So consider this. What else in your life, beyond just thoughts, might you be inadvertently strengthening by fighting against it, rather than exploring what might happen if you adopted a stance of acceptance and willingness?